Calling our meeting to order, Charlotte Select Board, Monday, September 10th, 2018, 6:06. Welcome, everyone. Audience, select full board. What's your name again? Thompson's Point Wastewater Ordinance. Do you want to kind of review, Dean, what's happened? So we kind of agreed to it, and then you had an attorney review, right?
Right, there were edits that the select board had made, that committee had made, and the select board made some additional edits. And there were some small things. For example, you wanted
Should we look at you have a clean copy and a crossed out copy. Should we kind of work with the cleaner copy?
I think it's easier to read.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, if
Okay.
you wanted to see all the edits,
Okay.
you could refer to the crossed out copy. But and then after the select board, I think was generally okay with it, you wanted to have the town attorney review it. He made some minor changes. I think the largest change that he proposed was in section 11.
Okay. And that's the enforcement, right?
Right. So enforcement and penalties. This is standard
9.
language for ordinances, that there is a provision that any violation that the fee would be $800 or less could be collected through the Judicial Bureau. If it's more than 800, then it would go to Superior Court and be a civil complaint.
And who's the Judicial Bureau? Like,
The Judicial Bureau.
that's us?
No, that's basically the same body that handles traffic fines. It's in White River Junction. And it basically handles smaller fines that municipalities can issue and enforce themselves.
So, one of the Thompson Point, who would issue a?
It indicates who is allowed to.
Oh, okay.
In section 1101 sub A, for purposes of enforcement in the Judicial Bureau, the town administrator, health officer,
Okay.
a commission member, a law enforcement officer, or duly authorized designee of the commission shall be designated enforcement officers.
So, okay, and now the fines, is that a norm or?
Those are the standard allowed by the state
For these kinds of
statute.
things?
Yeah, at first offense, second offense, and then if a person doesn't contest it, the fine goes down. Instead of $160, it's $100. And those are per day. He did actually, I had an exchange with him today. This phrase that says, each day any such violation shall continue, shall be deemed a separate offense, that was meant to be a separate subsection. So it would be basically A, B, C, and D, and each day would be a separate offense.
So that becomes C, and then any person violating is subsection D now.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's ridiculous.
So what's your view, Mary?
Well, we have had experience with the Vermont Judicial Bureau, and we have had experience with issuing municipal tickets, and we have, it's a lot of paperwork, and quite honestly, we never collected any money. And I'm not sure why we're making this so, I think in the whole 24 years that I've done this and been here, I might have used the $100 a day fine for one person once. I used the threat of it. That's it. So I don't know why we come up with this huge enforcement enforcement article in this ordinance.
Well, you just said because the threat of it makes people complain. If we eliminate it, the threat's not there.
Comply, the
Yeah.
threat of it makes people comply.
Yeah, so if
I
we
would
strike
take
it, then what's the point?
I would take that, where you just called it C,
Yeah,
I would put that at the end of the, right at the end of the line on, where it says, section 1101.
oh, so you make it,
Just make it one long thing instead of separating it. If you're gonna do that, if you're gonna keep it in there.
so you're saying 1101, add to subparagraph B is what your recommendation is?
To take this 1101
Yeah.
and continue it with each day any such violation shall count, so continue
Oh,
shall be deemed a separate offense, all amounts of it.
Up here then on the,
Right, put it on the end of that.
okay.
You know, that way it's all in one spot anyways. And I don't. And that's pretty standard for most violations, that each day constitutes a new violation.
Overkill.
Right,
We had a nice document, and the last article was penalties or whatever it was. Who's gonna issue the tickets?
Well, it
Who's gonna
says-
do the paperwork? Who's gonna do the reporting for the Vermont Judicial Bureau? Who's gonna decide that something is a violation and then tell the person who's writing the ticket that they have to write a ticket? Who's gonna collect the money? Who's gonna then put another penalty on there because, or 1.5% interest because the penalty's not collected?
who does that for every zoning violation?
This doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It works, it's gonna work as well as a zoning violation does.
Well, then maybe you should be the ticket writer, collector.
But I think the purpose is, most of our ordinances have a penalty. It's just a form of enforcement. It doesn't mean you have to, you can give warnings, you can do all kinds of things. There's only been one in 24 years. Maybe through the warnings, and as Fritz said, the threat of it having here, people will be encouraged to comply. I don't think it's about collecting money. I mean, are we really worried about collecting money? I think it's worried about compliance.
So you're just putting language in there that actually you're not gonna really paying attention to.
Who is going to enforce it like she
You're
has?
putting language in because the attorney has said that this is typical language
Who's
for an
going to make
ordinance.
the call to do that?
But it's not something that you're gonna follow. That's what you're saying.
What did you just, would you listen?
I said you are putting language into an ordinance because the attorney says this is the kind of language that ordinances have.
Right.
But it's not something that you're gonna follow
Why wouldn't
or care if you follow.
we don't need to follow, because it happens once every 24 years. Right? Are you expecting, because we put this language in here, now it's gonna happen weekly, and we're gonna have to have this voluminous paper trail to keep track of it? Pick one.
Well, no, I think it just becomes a gray zone as to who's doing what job or what area. I think going forward, and Thompson's point, I said it 2 years ago, that we need to really have specific description of who takes care of what at Thompson's Point going forward. And in particular now, when we do have the wealth of history with Mary and several other members. So us being responsible going forward, I believe we really have to have a clear path.
We have to
If it's
appoint a
not-
duly authorized representative to do the ticketing.
Yeah. So that would need to be figured out before this document becomes worthy of
Well,
signing.
it lists in here, who could be the,
Who could be, I want to know who
well,
would.
well,
who
Depends
is.
on what the
well,
violation
it does kind of say who is.
Yeah, section A,
But
subsection A.
But our zoning bylaws have the same type of violation set up. where each day constitutes a new violation.
Right here.
Yeah, I saw that today. And
It
it
tells you everything.
doesn't,
Tells you the
well,
violations.
I don't, so every one of those positions can do the enforcement?
That's a state statute. Yeah, state statute.
Really?
Yeah, it's right here. 24 VSA.
I see. Yep, okay. Well, that just makes all kinds of gray area, in my opinion. Something that doesn't, whatever.
What are the violations?
Say what?
What are the violations?
Good
You
question.
know, for zoning violations, you have a zoning administrator and you have certain, it's pretty clear. Thompson's, I mean, what is the violation?
Well,
Like somebody put in a toilet that wasn't a low flow toilet, I mean, who knows that?
Well, let's just start reading section by section. 505, no person shall discharge a substance into the public sewer before April 15th of any year or after October 31st. So if someone's using their camp after that date, that's a violation. The paragraph after paragraph lists what the violations are. And who's going to find that out? The Steve Williams will probably find that out. He'll call whoever and say, hey, you know, this guy's still here running and stuff into the system and it's supposed to be shut down.
It's the whoever that I want to know who is the whoever. I think that needs to be a clear,
It is clear. He
not
reports,
clean yet.
he reports, but this is, so
Steve reports it to who?
back to the wastewater guideline committee, the wastewater committee, of which there's a representative from the select board on it. He'd review the violation with the Thompson wastewater committee. And then you would discuss, do we provide a warning? Have they been warned before? Is it recurring? You know, you go through an orderly process through the wastewater committee.
Do we have these, do we have this 24 VSA 1974A and 1977, which your state statute little emblem should be in front of the other one?
I thought 1977 was
Do we have that? And is there a process of a notice of violation before a penalty is issued for them to remedy what was done? I mean, even with the zoning bylaws, they have, usually they give a notice of violation, which gives them the opportunity to fix whatever's wrong before they actually get a penalty or anything. On most things, it's so many days or that you have to remedy the issue before you get a violation and a penalty.
I suppose that might be up to the commission. If it's a flat-out violation, I'm using my camp in November and using the sewer, there's no gray area to that. If they find out you've got the wrong toilet, well, maybe you get a certain amount of time to replace it. So, I mean, speeding tickets, they don't give you a chance to re-up promise to slow down next time. That's up to the officer.
You got them on high.
If this is what the statutes or how people collect fines, I mean, that's the game you have to play, but to have any kind of ordinance with no fines is absolutely useless.
So,
There's gotta be some enforcement anyways. No matter what it is, if you're gonna have this ordinance, there's gotta be some way to enforce it. I just wanna make sure that there's a process.
Yeah, there's a lot of different type of violations. I mean, the process, I think, would have to be different for different kinds of violations,
When do
I
you
would think.
put all of that on paper? After you? Or during, or
Why?
paperwork?
I mean, would we leave that up? That would be something left up in the air depending on, for a time frame, if any, for a violation? For a notice of violation?
Well, I wouldn't leave it up in the air. I'd want it on paper. What?
Well, like
Understand.
Fritz says, there's gonna be different things that are gonna be, I mean,
Wow.
like he said, I mean, if you go down there before the system is running, and there's somebody in a camp already using it, then that is a blatant violation which gets a fine right off. Where if it happens to be something where if they put in an extra shower head or an extra toilet or something else, it could be something that could be a notice of violation and give them 30 days to fix it, where they'd be able to take out whatever's in there and be done with it. No money was involved. It was just a removal of whatever was put in.
Maybe you run into methyl bad stuff in the system and it takes a week to track down where it came from. I mean, that's also a violation, but timeframes are gonna have to be flexible.
There's gonna have to be some guidelines, right, to the offense and the timelines and all of that. Right?
Well, this outlines what the offenses are, as to when you issue a fine. I guess it would be when you conclusively figure out who did it.
And then who decides what the fine is?
Well, it says the first
Oh, I see, with the.
First one's $100.
Using the dollar amount.
second
That's in
one's
here?
320.
I see.
That's here.
The only thing I can think of, should there be some in this ordinance under the section 11 where a matter gets referred to the Thompson's Point Wastewater Commission? Should that, and then that commission then can go through these, I mean, the examples could be limitless, from rodent infestation to low flow, polluting the lake, there could be all kinds of things. So if the complaint is turned over to the commission, then they can reflect in Article 11 what the appropriate warnings or actions should be.
You are the sewer
I
commission.
was just gonna say, that's only.
We're the commission, what's the committee called?
The Thompson.
The committee, and we're the commissioners. Okay. Okay, the previous ordinance shall be reviewed, not signified by the Board of Sewer System Commissioners, so that's us. You're right.
Agents and duly authorized.
So we already have the option. There's only been one in 24 years. I don't think it's going to overload us. So how do you want to proceed with this paragraph? Is there a majority that thinks this ordinance is, this section 11 is acceptable, or?
Well, it's long, but if, according to our council, those are the rules we have to play by.
Like I said, if we're gonna keep everything, the only thing I would change is I would take that other section
That you just talked
that
about?
I talked about.
Okay.
For each day, any such violation, take that paragraph and put it at the end of the section 1101 part. Make it a single area, so that you're not finding it later.
And so,
To the end of, after,
Right after where it says that such violation continues.
yeah, okay, any person who violates a provision of this ordinance shall be subject to a civil penalty up to $800 per day for each day that such violation continues. And then,
Each day, any such violation shall continue, shall be deemed a separate offense, all amounts
Okay.
reflected, da-da-da-da-da. That should all be one paragraph.
who's doing all of the, there's fines to be written? Who's doing that?
Well, I would assume
That
that
the
we would probably
treasurer-
authorize the health officer or the zoning administrator to look at things, because that's part of what he does anyways with health concerns is. I mean, it could be the town administrator if he wants to go down and, if we want to.
Depend on what the violation is too.
The zoning administrator is health officer as well, so a lot of it would come under his position.
Yeah.
So, okay, were there other major items in this?
There wasn't a major item, there was a small item in section 704 in the hard copy that was passed out, the date that electrical service needs to be maintained is November 15th, and the earlier hard copy said October 30th.
So that should be changed to November 15th?
Yes.
It's in the middle of page 8. So one of the other topics we're going to talk about are costs, but that's not a part of the ordinance, right?
There is a section, yes, that 304 or 305 that
Okay.
So this is the breakdown of the costs to the 7 camps on Lanes Lane that are now being added to the sewage service area, except for lot 204, until that is no longer seasonal. Until it is seasonal, thank you. And the cost is broken down into 2 components. The costs associated with extending the public sewer to Lanes Lane and connecting each structure. So in a way, that cost includes 2 costs. One is the cost of extending the force main, which is itself is a capital cost, and then the actual connection of each of the 7 structures. And then additionally, it was discussed the prorated depreciated cost of the original system would be paid back into the capital fund.
Over a 20-year period,
That's what it says.
Or less if they want,
or less,
at their discretion.
okay?
So there's the cost of the force main, the cost of the original system, and the cost of the connection. So in this, the cost of the connection isn't going to be known until each camp is actually connected, and it may differ depending upon if they have a septic tank that's able to be reused or it needs to be replaced. So each camp potentially may have a different cost, so that can't be in the ordinance. The depreciated cost of the original system has been estimated by Civil Engineering Associates to be $10,500 per connection. And the cost of the extension is now almost a known cost. The cost for Steve Williams to actually physically construct it was $8,500.
That's the piece of paper that was handed out.
I don't know
Did you
if
hand
actually,
that out,
I made one copy, but it's basically up here on the screen. If you can you
Okay.
read that? I can zoom in. So the construction of the force main, that was a contract with Steve Williams, $8,500. So far, engineering has come to a little bit less than $5,500. It's actually around $5,000. They're not entirely done. There's what they estimate is a couple more hours of work to finalize the engineering. And then, if you want to, legal costs, which have already been paid, actually, from the Selectboard's account, come to about $9,200. So the per connection cost for the extension, if you include engineering, the cost of construction and legal comes to about $3,300 per camp.
What's the logic behind including the legal amendment to the ordinance?
That is actually just, there were additional legal costs to it that addressed more portions of the ordinance, but the portion that addresses is really section 304, 305, and the leases that were changed in order to require connection of Lanes Lane camps.
What's the breakdown between the amount of work that went into the lease amendments versus 304, 305?
I don't know.
I think it's 50.
What was the difference you're asking for, between what?
The legal work that went into amending 304 and 305 versus amending the leases for those 8 lots.
Yeah, I'm thinking we should maybe just pick a portion of that and
I
say
don't-
it.
yeah, I
you know,
think it's the
'cause our-
town's
our process
responsibility to
is-
work on the
Our
ordinance.
process is kind of a fumble anyway, so.
Yeah, I don't think
I
the
don't think
Lanes
they-
Lane people should have to pay for that part.
Plus, I think, wasn't the legal work over a 3-year period that you're
It
telling me?
was approximately, if you took about half of that, you could, plug that in and
Somewhere between a fourth and a half.
Apply a fourth or a half to which, to
Yeah, I mean, I
To the
think a
lots,
fourth
yeah.
would be more
Yeah.
to the Lanes Lane people.
as
Yeah.
far as their responsibility for this. This is all kind of the town's fault in a lot of ways. I don't know why they'd be paying the legal fees.
I agree.
So what's 25% of 9,200?
23.
23? Right, 23. So apply 2,300 to the Lanes Lane cost? Is that what makes it fair to people?
Seems more fair.
Close enough. Without having, keeping track of it from the beginning.
So that means the bill for hookup would be the specific connection for that family that hooks up, in this case, Masons have, and then it'd be 1/7 of the 5,500, 1/7 of the 2,300, is that right?
okay, I see what you're saying.
See, I'm going
Yeah.
back to your sheet.
Yeah,
It's going to be 1/7 of 5500, which is engineering.
yeah, the
One-
total,
What, yeah, I don't know if you've got the math, then 1/7 of 8,500.
I just totaled all three and then,
So it's 1/7 of the total there,
Right.
which is
Well, then the total just got revised, though. Have you revised it
it's a
yet?
spreadsheet.
it's 1/7 of 16.3.
It's 1/7 of 16.3,
2328, yeah, 2329, so that is the number.
2329. So that would get added to, in this case, for example, a Mason, so they've been billed 6,880, and their additional bill would be 2,329.
Is any contractor allowed to do the hookup from someone's camp to the force main?
It's, I think we've discouraged that because Steve Williams is going to be having to maintain it, so it's,
Puts a kind of bind on
it's,
the fairness of the pricing, not that Steve's gonna be unfair, but that no one has an option.
it's true, but if someone else, I want to say, somebody that does the work at the lowest cost that may not do appropriate work, and then Steve has to come in and change it.
Oh, I thought I remember a discussion where Steve would sign off on it, the installation of it, kind of like Junior does when some contractor puts a culvert in the right of way. Junior doesn't have to put in all the culverts.
We could make that a stipulation. That
Yeah.
he signs off on it.
Yeah, because I mean, someone could find
There's
a
a lot of
better price.
standard fixtures that I think he would want used for sizing and so forth.
Yeah, and that,
But didn't we have a list or whatever of the materials, you know, like the parts and pieces that were gonna be kind of required,
the specs.
the specs on them?
It has to be this size
Yeah.
pipe and
And
this
that
far
way-
below
And
the
that way,
soil.
you know, any engineer could pretty much, any certified engineer should be able to put the proper materials together.
He may
Install.
already have the materials. I'm not 100% sure of that.
There were
but-
some that I thought he had already.
Right.
I don't think it's out of the ordinary for a municipality to require paying their, I mean, a lot of cities have their own crews, and that you pay them. You
Yeah, I
don't
just-
have the option of using a
We
private
had one
contractor.
landowner, camp owner on Lane's Lane was here a year or so ago, and he wanted to do it himself. He was
Well,
pretty vocal
That
about
was
it.
part of section 305 of not including the price now in this calculation, was that someone could do it in 10 years, who knows how much it would cost? What if Steve's not the operator? You know, if it's someone else 10 years from now? It seems, I don't know, am I,
And who knows what the materials are gonna cost.
right, it just seems
Are you-
odd to force people to use one person who's not necessarily even known in the future. I mean, if it's a city,
I agree, I think we ought
a
to
city
have,
sewer works, I
have
get
something
that.
in there that says that, that an engineer for the town looks at it for an inspection.
Before it's, yeah, before final approval by the system engineer for the connection of a structure on any of lots 201 to 208 to the public sewer, the owner of the structure shall pay to the town the portions of the connection fee associated with extending the public sewer to Lane's Lane and connecting the structure. I guess that,
No, that just says that they gotta pay something, it doesn't say that they have to have.
it alludes to the system engineer approving it, but it doesn't explicitly say the system
No.
engineer is gonna approve it.
Were you reading which section, 30?
305, the second paragraph?
Yeah.
Maybe it's higher up.
Maybe
Says
before the
that,
approval
yeah.
well, it's by the system engineer, so I mean, it would be our system engineer,
Which is currently Steve Ravel.
which is currently.
No, he's the operator. So
System
Oh,
engineer
right.
is Chris.
System engineer is in
Civil
section
engineer.
219, and shall mean the person designated by the commission to provide engineering support to the system operator. So that would be civil engineering at this current time.
Currently. But it doesn't specifically or explicitly say that the system engineer has to sign off on the connection from the structure to the force main. At least I don't see that anywhere. It gives them the freedom to do so.
Well, it
and
says before final approval by the system engineer for a connection, the owner shall pay the town its fair share.
But the ordinance doesn't
So the
empower final approval or make conditional the hookup to a final approval by the system engineer. It's just mentioning a final approval here. Is that accurate?
You could just say before the required final approval.
That would probably cover it in one
Before the
sentence.
what?
Just add the word required in front of before the required final approval.
And then we should put in, after that comma, the owner of the structure shall show compliance to engineering specifications, something like that, and pay.
If he doesn't apply, if he doesn't comply, he's not gonna finally give it a final approval, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so.
So that approval is by the system engineer. It doesn't say anything about the operator.
Right.
But I think the system engineer works, I mean, it's up to the system engineer to work with the operator. So I think that's covered.
So civil engineering should be notified when we pass this ordinance that that's their responsibility moving
Right.
forward.
Yep.
I mean, most of the operator's work is done under this supervision or approval of the engineer as it is.
Right.
So,
I have a question. These other one-time expenses, like the engineering cost, cost of the force main, and this share of the legal, should that be paid now, or does that get paid upon hookup? Because those expenses are complete. Right? The hookups understandably aren't complete, but we've already expended the money for these other 3 areas.
The second paragraph, I think, addresses that.
On 304,
Yeah, 305, yeah.
305?
Right, they can pay 1/20th over 20 years, starting
Well, that's
now.
the capital, that, I understand that, I'm talking more about the engineering work to put the force main in, the cost to put this sheet here, the cost to put the force main in, and the legal fees to,
I think it's baked in there, may choose to
it's the
pay the
last
town
line.
the portion of the connection fee
okay.
composed of the prorated, oh, it's not in there.
I think the second paragraph is for extending the public sewer to Lanes Lane and connecting the structure. So, before final approval, before the required final approval by the system engineer for connection of the structures of any lots 201 through 208 to the public sewer, the owner of the structure shall pay the town the portions of the connection fee associated with extending the public sewer to Lanes Lane.
So that says associated fees, so that we've answered that, so they don't have, so we've paid these fees.
I mean, if you want, you could put the specific amount in there that you've just discussed, would be 23.29 per connection.
So what, now that we know it's an exact number, what do you folks think?
Well, it's an exact number for now.
See, I think we did once talk about if someone didn't want to connect now, they shouldn't really have to pay for that now.
Okay.
But once they
Well,
start
not-
using
not
it,
only
they should
that,
start
but
to
that
pay
would
for it.
change. The fee for our engineer to go down there and look at it 20 years from now, who knows what that fee is gonna be?
Well, yeah, well, that's not baked into this
Well,
number we just,
The current words, though,
Calculated.
say associated fees.
oh, so,
You read it to us. Associated, all costs associated with that, extending the public service line and connecting each structure on Lanes Lane and to the prorated cost of the original construction public service fee. The owner shall pay a connection
Those
fee.
numbers will be different in years to come. I mean, everything's gonna be different in years to come.
as far as that final connection from the structure to the force main. But
Right.
I think they're,
But I'm talking about these
The-
fees are all done.
are all
The
set.
force main is in. That's
Right.
done.
and the legal fees.
The
we just-
engineering oversight for that is done. And the legal fees are done. There might be more, but this 2329, that's all set. All they have to do now is hook up.
And the hookup might
Right,
change.
but they hook up, but I mean, what happens right now? They pay that fee, and we send our engineer down to go look at their system before they hook up, to verify that it's
But that's
proper.
between the force main and their home.
Right,
This is not for that. This is for the force main location.
well, I'm just wondering, because we're directing them to do it here, to pay for for them to look at the everything before the force main, from the camp to the force main.
Before final approval.
Before
is-
final approval, they
when
have to
they're
be,
gonna
they
start
have to be
paying that.
looked at by our engineer, and if our engineer is there, then they gotta pay that. Where does that show up?
Isn't that the second paragraph?
It may be, but it wouldn't be it wouldn't be today's number. It wouldn't work into today's number that you're
Could be additional
presenting.
cost is what you're saying.
It'd be an additional cost to the installation of the septic from the force main to the camp.
So by the language saying associated with extending the public sewer, is that sufficiently broad to include that. Any
But you're right,
change.
as long as it's not within this number.
So that means,
As long as this number pertains to everything from the forest main to our system, not from the forest main to the camp.
Yeah, it does. That does.
Okay.
I have a question, section 305, under the number 1. The connection fee shall include all costs associated with extending the public sewer to Lane's Lane and connecting each structure on Lane's Lane to the public sewer?
Right.
so what did you just say? The connection fee shall include what? Where did you read?
Yeah, but that's not right.
The first paragraph, number 1.
305, the owner of a structure on lots 201 through 208 shall pay a connection fee set by the commission to the town in the manner described below. All costs associated with extending the public sewer and connecting each structure on Lane's Lane to the public sewer?
Yeah, that shouldn't be there.
I thought,
That shouldn't be there. Because that's not part of the connection fee. Because if you're saying that the connection fee is the 10,500, then you have this up
That's
here.
2. 2 is the prorated depreciation is 2. That's the 10,500.
Right, but I mean, this says, in this 305, it says the connection fee shall include all costs associated with extending the public sewer to Lane's Lane. I understand that, that's fine. It says, and connecting each structure on Lane's Lane to the public sewer. So this connection fee covers that, which,
but that's what they're privately contracting
that's what they're
for
doing.
sometime in the
But
future.
1, that you just read, there are 2 parts to 1. It's all this stuff here, the legal, the engineering,
I got that, that's that.
and it's the cost to the house.
Can you go back to that?
No, it's not.
Breakout?
Spreadsheet?
Yeah, or the
Yeah.
spreadsheet form?
And connecting each structure on Lane's Lane is the second part of that.
Right, but we're paying, so this connection fee, this one-time 10,500 connection fee pays for everything from the camp all the way to, into our septic, so why are they,
No, it doesn't.
that's the way it reads.
I can go back to that.
what you're saying.
Well, wait,
I
just,
see exactly what
can we go over these numbers again?
All right, so the first 3 numbers, and this is the total of those first 3 numbers, 16,300 is the total cost for engineering, construction, legal for extending the force main.
Got
Does
it.
not include any proration for the existing system. That's the
just
10,000,
extend the system.
right,
Where is the number for the depreciated?
10,500 down
Okay.
here.
And that's 2, the prorated depreciated cost of the original construction. 2
But
is
wait,
defined
Yeah.
under 305. 2 is the prorated depreciation, which is the 10,500 defined below.
Right.
So there's 3 elements of cost.
Right,
Hook up force main to the house,
Right.
right.
all these one-time costs, and that's under 1. And under 2 is the return to the capital
Fine.
depreciated value, their share. So it's 3 parts.
There shouldn't be 3 parts.
Well, if there are, we should have 3 numbers in section 305.
We could do it that way.
So 1, all costs associated with extending to the public sewer to Lane's Lane.
That's 1.
2, connecting all costs
All one-time costs,
for connecting
legal.
each structure on Lane's Lane to the public sewer.
So so part of this connection fee is everything going from the force main to the structure.
Right. Which
That's
is gonna be
one.
determined someday in the future.
Which is what they're,
They're gonna
I'm assuming that these
put to
guys are
bed.
supposed to be paying for, but it's all based as this, right down here, it says, this portion of the, so they're saying that, so the 10,000 isn't just the connection.
All that is-
Isn't the only part of the connection fee.
It's got nothing to do with it. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, They spent
Everyone spent X
whatever it
amount
was.
and paid
Mary
over
knows,
20
couple million
years.
bucks. This is just
Their
their
share.
share of that investment 20-plus years ago.
Of the
That's
whole
all that
system.
is. And
But-
Dave marshaled a depreciation.
But if people are bidding out from their structure to the public and they go with some private contractor to do that work, why is it baked into
They still have-
a 20-year
'cause they
payment to
still
the
have to
town?
pay
It isn't. The 20-year
It is under
payment is
here.
only the capital.
No. They get to pay this section 305 lumps all of these fees
But it doesn't
and they
figure
can
our
pay
bottom
over
line yet,
20
though.
years.
It doesn't
No,
say
they
what the
can't.
total amount is. I mean, so
It's
the
confusing.
cost,
It's confusing that, but on the
connecting
bottom-
each structure on Lane's Lane is
Read the
gonna
last
change
Okay,
with time.
got it. The
So-
10.5 is over 20 years.
Right,
Yes, only.
And the
it's confusing.
number
To make it
one,
clear, Frank,
the 2329 is
that ought to be one.
up
That's-
front.
Those are called sunk charges for the engineering, installation of force main, and legal fees. That's a one-time,
The cost associated with extending the public sewer line. to
right,
Lane's
that's
Lane.
2,329. Next, two is from the force main to the house. That is going to be different for each house.
That could be, if you subcontracted it yourself, you're gonna pay that bill. The only thing you'd have to pay to the town would be the cost of your engineer to approve it.
Right.
If you chose to have the town, or the operator do the installation through the town, then you would have to pay a significant larger figure through the town.
So in that second paragraph where it says, "The owner of the structure shall pay to the town the portions of the connection fee associated with extending the public sewer to Lane's Lane," that's the 2329.
Yeah,
And connecting the structure thereto. That is the part where they may
It's not-
only pay the engineer. If they
if they,
pay someone else $5,000 to do it.
yes,
That's the part that's gray. It doesn't really,
It makes it complicated when
Tell-
you're saying the same thing in two
inform the-
different paragraphs in different ways.
and it doesn't inform the people who own those camps that they don't have to have the town do it.
So
do the
why do we
work.
have three paragraphs? The first one, all costs, or three numbers, all costs associated with extending the public service line to Lane's Lane, that's one. Number two is connecting from the forest lane to the home. And then three is the prorated appreciated value of the original capital investment.
Yeah, that'll make it clear,
Seems
much
clearer.
more clear.
I agree.
Oh, Mary's had her hand up a long time. Yes, Mary?
So,
Hands tired?
we have Ben Mason who's already connected.
Yep.
I got a bill from Steve Williams that said, this is how much it costs to connect Ben Mason's camp to the system. Bill him this. I billed him. I collected it. Tonight, for the very first time, we have a number that's 2329, which is the first time that I've really heard that. I understand the 10,500. 2329 was just kind of, oh yeah, there's that too. So am I supposed to be billing that to Ben Mason as well? And what am I supposed to call it? And I really think that the people that live on Lane's Lane that will be connecting in the future to the sewer system need something besides the Thompson's Point wastewater ordinance in their hand that tells them exactly, this is exactly what it's going to cost when you connect to the sewer. It's going to be the connection, the physical connection from the force main to your camp. It's going to be $10,500 in capital, and it's going to be this other, whatever you want to call that, 2329, and please round it up or do something.
Yeah, that would be in the
Because they
memo-
need to
memorandum.
know that. I mean, I feel like really,
to the left.
I feel like we're sitting here winging it around and, we update a spreadsheet tonight, when you were under the impression that that this ordinance was all done, and I already billed Ben Mason a portion, which I thought was his connection to the system, and now tonight, I see that, oh yeah, there's a little bit more, by the way, you owe this. It's not neat.
Well, clearly not if it's We've stayed
Please
right
write
here
a
in this
letter to
portion.
Lane's Lane. Those people were supposed to have had a letter in their hand laying out how this was gonna work for them a year and a half to 2 years ago.
So the camp owners on Lane's Lane did receive a letter telling them they may be required to connect. Ben Mason was in a hurry to connect. He was told there will be a fee to cover the extension of the force main. He was only billed the portion that actually connected him. That's what you billed him for. It did not include the extension of the force main. I think the select board knew that at the time.
Yep.
And now you can bill him that.
As the person sending the bill.
Well, you can bill him that now, because now the select board is agreeing to what that fee is, and now the letter can be sent to the rest of the Lane's Lane leaseholders.
So why don't we change the words, like we said, 1, 2, and 3 in that paragraph?
Yep.
Put a memo together, as Mary's suggesting, that there'll be 3 parts of the payments,
Which will basically be section 305.
which will be a section, essentially, yeah. 305, right. I think we have to cut it off now, we're really.
I think we have another at least one more work session when all
Oh, we
the
do.
words are cleared up and,
So why don't we look at this again?
yeah.
I agree with you, we're not ready to approve this yet. But I think we've agreed on the pricing
Yeah. And
as a
then that-
memo.
Yep, I think round it.
And why don't we look at that memo for next week that represents the cost of Lane's Lane, and then,
And that number 2, where it's connecting each structure to the public sewer, that paragraph could read something to the effect of, at a minimum, will include the cost of the engineer's approval,
right,
or if the town's operator does the work, would include the cost to
The engineer,
install the
engineer, the cost of the engineer would be in the
final
the
approval.
final approval and the connection of the structure would be within that number.
So then it would just
So it'd be borne by
be dependent on whether
by
the
the-
town's operator did it, or would be nothing if a private operator did the work.
Yep.
okay. So, I think I understand, we can put a draft letter and let the select board see it. Hopefully we can look at it next meeting. Okay, sorry, everybody. Emerald Ash Board, 4, Mark. Sorry. We're just, gotta make some progress in this ordinance.
Well, thanks for making time for me. I appreciate it. I wanted to bring you all up to date on the Emerald Ash Borer Preparedness Plan. We've had 3 meetings so far, and we got to a point where I think it's important for the select board to have some understanding of what we're doing and where we're going, so you guys can have a chance to provide some input. We're going to need some help from the select board. There are going to be some decisions that have to be made, and I'll talk a little bit about that. There are the members of the board, the group, the planning group, are myself, Junior Lewis, road commissioner, Dale Bergdahl, professor emeritus, forestry, UVM, Amos Baer, who's the chair of our Conservation Commission, Joanna Cummings, a new addition to the group. She's an expert in horticulture and communications. And Vijay Komay, who is the city arborist for Burlington. He's also a Charlotte resident.
What was his name?
Vijay.
Last name?
Vijay Komay, C-O-M-A-I. So recently appointed arborist for the town of Burlington. So, we also, it'd be great if we could have a member of the select board on the committee too, to be a liaison, but so that's something that you all might want to talk about. The one thing that we're doing is that there are 4 of us now in town who've been trained to do GIS mapping, and we've completed an initial map of roadside ash trees that might pose a hazard. So the idea is to eventually have on a map all the ash trees in town in the public right-of-way and also in public property, that we're going to either remove or, in a small number of cases, chemically treat to keep. So that will aid us in creating more precise estimates for what it's going to cost to have these trees removed, and it'll also be a tool that they'll use for soliciting requests for proposals from contractors to do the actual removals. You'll recall that we do have a preliminary inventory that was based on a 10% sample, so we've got some idea of what we're dealing with, and we've used that as a basis for some preliminary estimates of what it's going to cost us. Remember that?
Number of ash already. I'm sorry.
So it's like it's close to 800 trees that we think we're going to need to have removed. It doesn't all have to be done at once. We're going to be proposing that we do this over a 5-year time frame. So the idea with this is that one way or another, the town is going to be saddled with some costs to deal with a lot of dead ash trees. And so we'd like to try to figure out the way to do it so the costs are spread out over time and so that the costs are minimized. It's less expensive to remove live trees than it is to remove dead trees, so as much as possible, we're going to try to get the schedule done so that we're removing trees that aren't already dead.
Any chance you could have a first brush at the budget? So like in the next 3 months, we'll look at the next fiscal year. It'd be nice if we had some kind of, I mean, what should we put in the next
Yeah.
This
budget?
sheet says 20 grand a year.
Yes,
Preliminary.
so
So it's harder to remove easier to remove a live tree than a dead one?
yeah, that's something
Oh, here we go.
Sorry.
I wasn't aware of until I started attending these seminars on emerald ash borer. And live trees are easier to remove because they come apart in one piece. Dead trees kind of crumble apart and they're harder to pick up and move around.
Does this number include disposal?
Right, so the disposal is another topic that we had kind of a longish discussion at the last meeting about disposal, and something we haven't quite figured out, but that's one of the points that I wanted to bring up with the select board, is that we need a disposal site or disposal sites. And we had talked about the possibility of using the old flea market site as a place to put chips and woody material. So the idea with that would be that if we could temporarily put chips and branches and logs at this site, people could be invited to remove chips and logs for firewood if they wanted
So
to.
once they're dead and removed, there's no, I guess you don't have to worry about spreading, it's gonna happen anyway.
Right.
Locally. I mean, probably wouldn't want people driving it to another state.
Right, so you have to, there'll be quarantine rules in effect, but, since the EAB is pretty much all around, I'm not really sure what the implications of that are gonna be.
Is
So chipping them
McNeil
up and-
accepting this?
What?
Would McNeil Power Plant accept these chips?
They would, yeah.
Is that-
But
It's more expensive than,
one of the things that
Somewhere in
Junior
town.
said when we were just talking about this is that there seems to be no, there's kind of a bottomless demand for chips around town. Farmers use the chips, we use the chips in the park. Landowners like to have chips. So I think if we left the chips at the, one thing is that some of the chips can be used by, by prearrangement by farmers. So we can, take the chips by truck directly to farms and get rid of a lot of the stuff that way. And then some of it might end up, without a destination in the immediate the moment, and then that stuff could possibly be left at the flea market site or some other site that gets designated, or maybe just trucked directly to McNeil, possibly. But it's something we're trying to figure out. Let's see, the chemical treatment is one of the options. There aren't a lot of trees. Sue Smith, who's sitting behind me, our deputy tree warden, and I walked around and took a look at the ash trees around town, and there aren't a lot of ash trees in the public way that we think are really necessary or worthy of keeping. There's one behind the senior center that's a nice one that we'd like to keep, but there's an expense to that too. There are a few at the park that we'd like to keep.
So what's the cost difference between keeping and getting rid of?
That's a good question. It's been going down. The largest ash tree in town, our champion ash tree, was recently treated, and that cost $375. So that would be the higher end. Although I know that they received bids that were higher than that, but they accepted a bid for $375. So I think it'll be in the range of about $100 to maybe about $400 per tree, depending on the size of the tree and the numbers of trees in a particular location.
Just a little systemic thing, you drill a hole and stick it in a tree.
Yeah, right. So it's a systemic chemical. There are actually 4 or 5 chemicals that are being used right now, and it's a systemic chemical. You inject it into holes in the tree, and the chemical moves up the tree into the branches. And it kills the larvae that emerge.
It's that little thing that just looks like a pipe.
Actually, I haven't seen it, but it's like some kind of injection device. I think it's kind of like a gun, a hypodermic.
Oh, so I had experience doing, they're little plastic things that look like a pipe that you would smoke.
Uh-huh.
And you just drill a hole and you stick it in a tree, it's kind of spring-loaded, and it slowly compresses the stuff into the tree.
Yeah.
And I had any number of trees treated by a professional, and then found out if I just bought a box of these things and went around with a small drill, I could do the same thing for a whole lot less money.
Right.
But so I guess it depends on how the chemical's injected, if it has to be done with machinery or a one-time deal, or if it's these little plastic things, it's different.
Yeah. Another option for landowners is to saturate the ground with this insecticide. It's not something that we're recommending, but it is one of the options that people are deploying.
And it looks like at 154 trees a year, divided by 20,000, it's like $130 per tree to remove.
Oh, you take it down.
Right.
That's pretty cheap.
So that was based on, we solicited a couple tentative estimates from contractors, and this is based on that. It's more expensive. You end up using buckets and stuff to remove trees and hazardous sites, and it's more expensive. But we can.
Yeah, I suppose if there's power lines involved, it costs a lot more than if you're just.
Yeah, and we're expecting that the power company will be responsible for removing trees that were in their right of way. So we're kind of counting on that. So this inventory doesn't include the power line right-of-way trees.
Is part of it or not?
Is not part of it.
Oh, it's not part of it. I don't think I got a copy of this in my packet because you probably knew I'd have a meltdown if I didn't get. It's a lot of trees over the next 5 years. I gotta let that absorb in,
Actually,
What's your next
Carrie,
step?
we're getting off easy here. Some towns are really getting hit hard by this. Williston invested heavily in planting roadside ash trees, and they've got thousands of ash trees that are going to have to be removed and replaced, and it's going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That was, yeah. What's your next step?
The next step is we're going to complete our inventory. There'll be a formal proposal to the select board for a supplemental budget for the road commissioner for $20,000 this year.
This year being starting when, right now?
Well, there'll be a supplemental request for a supplemental budget for the next fiscal year.
July 1st.
Right, July 1st, but we'd also like some money for this year, if there's any money available from discretionary, if there's a discretionary budget.
For work this fall or work in the spring?
To work from late fall to early spring, which is the prime cutting season for the road commission.
What order of magnitude are you looking there?
We would like $20,000.
Then it's gonna be not dead ones, but ones that don't have foliage on it, so they might as well be dead.
Well, they still have water, I mean, they're still living, but it's easier to remove them with no leaves.
Right.
So not budgeted 20,000 in the year we're in right now.
Yeah, so I don't know, what the process would be if I can make a request now for money for this fiscal year, current fiscal year.
And what you're basically asking is for the road commissioner's budget to go over budget by $20,000.
Yes,
No, we don't like that.
I know.
We already had a
I don't like it either. I'm a taxpayer.
two for his budget this year.
Some of this is, we're gonna have to absorb, and you've got a lot more knowledge than I do, of course, but I wanna get caught up to speed and think about, now that I know this, and I'd wanna know where some of those trees are.
Been shopping for trippers, because I got a lot of dead ones.
Well, one thing is, we're not gonna ask the town to, to put more money into this than is absolutely required. We're only looking at the removal of trees that are potential hazard trees. So trees that are, leaning away from the right-of-way, trees that are too small, trees that don't pose a threat. We're just gonna allow those to be, to die in place and rot. The scenario that we want to avoid is having to deal with 800 dead trees in 1 or 2 years, and the budget impacts of that kind of an operation. So we think by doing it in a phased period and preemptively removing live trees, it'll reduce the overall cost to the town.
Oh, and risk of injury.
Yeah, and reduce the danger. That's true, too.
So I think we need a couple of weeks to see what the budget's looking at. We're just finishing an audit, make sure no issues. So I think we need a little time to take a look at, money that may be available. I think Junior was already challenged in the road work this year quite a bit in his budget. The blacktop, we had some issues there.
Right.
So I think, to answer your question, I think we need a little time to analyze it and think about it and see what Mary and Dean recommend that we could be underrunning and where it could come from.
Okay. Well, that's great. Thanks for thinking about that. And if you have other questions, of course, I'm available to talk to them about it. And we're going
Try
to...
to be the liaison for the select board on this subject if you wanted to copy. I'm not really big about emailing a lot, but I could certainly acknowledge.
Thank you,
quickly
Gary. I
that-
appreciate that.
Yep,
We'll
I'd love
make sure to copy you on stuff.
All right, great. I'll give it my best shot if I,
Towns or other states gone through the insurance process as far as covering the costs of removing this act of God?
other major.
You mean, were they insured to address
To
this?
file a claim for the
Not
hazard
that
of all
I've
these
never
dead
heard
trees?
of that.
No,
Yeah, I don't think so.
I haven't been to any conferences yet, but I know,
It might be interesting to ask.
yeah, Michigan lost $700 million worth of timber in a matter of years. So there are certainly claims there, but that's, industrial claims. I don't know about,
Okay.
Well, you'd have to look at our property. We had a brush fire in California, they paid quite a bit of tree removal of burned trees, so maybe it's in our property insurance.
That's damage to personal property, but that isn't, this isn't
Well,
damage that's happened. yet.
VLCT. I mean, it'd be
Yeah.
much less
Doesn't your
expensive to
insurance go
deal
up
with
if
it
you put a claim in like that? Wouldn't it?
before the trees die and cause damage. I don't know if that bridge has been crossed, because we're kind of late in the game of the infestation. I think a lot of municipalities tried a lot of things.
Insurance.
Dean, may I have a copy of this? I didn't get
Oh, really?
one.
Oh, I thought it was, okay.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make one more? Say one more thing, Lynn. One of the things we're trying to do is public outreach. So we're trying to educate landowners about the issues that they can be prepared and be thinking about budget for their own properties for tree removals and chemical treatment. And one of the things we'd like to do as a demonstration project is to remove two ash trees in front of, in this direction, behind the town hall, kind of in front of the library. There are 4 ash trees there at the corner spot. And we'd like to remove 2 of those and then plant something else in the middle, a sycamore or a tulip tree. And then put some signage up so that we can explain why we're removing live trees. And in that way, one, make sure that there's a tree left standing in that spot when the ash trees come down, and then 2, use that as a way of vehicle for sort of our public outreach effort. We've got money in the, I've got money in the Rudder Fund to buy a tree, so I don't need any extra money from the select board for that. But I wanted to let you know that that's what we're thinking and
Should we
give you.
tag them and put orange tape around so people that work around that area, the library and stuff, would say these trees are about to go down? And
Yeah,
I mean, it might be nice to see what the reaction is too.
yeah.
Well, I'm concerned about, I don't know the plans for the library expansion. Mark and I have talked about that a little bit. But are those trees destined to be removed anyway? What are the plans? Is there going to be more parking for the library as it expands? I hate to put trees in and then tear them out.
I don't think there's any in the plan to add additional parking.
No, they were just gonna
So
go
there's
certain,
nothing going that way.
There's nothing going that way?
just
that way
stop
from
and
the
talk to
driveway.
Margaret, they got a plan, site plan. That basically the expansion, the proposed expansion is to the south.
Of the,
Not
South of the
south
current
of the
building.
driveway.
this side, north side of the driveway.
They're on the north side of the driveway? The ash trees are?
Yeah, one is.
Yeah, so
Because
we're
they're
talking
going-
about, there are a bunch of ash trees around here, but there are 4 planted on the north side of the driveway. So that's, we've been told that there is a possibility that the parking lot might be expanded to the south. And so we were wanting to avoid planting in a spot where the parking lot might be expanded.
And just,
But-
you can stop at the library and they got a site plan you can look at.
Okay,
But
It's-
but
okay.
the building is gonna go to the
The
south, and it's gonna engulf at least 1 or 2 parking spaces.
Close to it, yeah.
So are we providing a go-ahead on this, or let people know in advance,
no.
or? Huh?
Wow.
Well, the library one, I'm not, I
Yeah,
can't
we,
commit to them, I don't know what trees they
no,
are.
yeah.
Isn't the,
This was
is
just a
the tree
throw
warden's
in there.
discretion
Yeah,
as far as removing trees?
yeah, I would think that,
yeah, I think it is, but it's so it's, but I know if I start cutting down trees around the town hall, somebody's
Yeah.
not gonna like it very much.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So,
People need to be
Well, we're
warned a little
coming
bit.
back to talk again, right?
yeah.
I think it's a great
Wouldn't there
idea
be,
personally. The more awareness there is about this, the more proactive people will be on their own
I
properties.
agree, I think to make a statement of these trees that need to be removed, to educate.
Yeah, I mean, you should see in Burlington, trees are going down left and right.
Well, I'll talk to Margaret and the library folks before I do anything as well, just to make sure that they're on board.
certainly before you put any new ones in. If you're gonna take some down, I mean, that's,
But if you guys are agreed in principle, we'll go ahead and start planning for
As long as
after.
people know, I mean, I don't know if you use Front Porch Forum or something, let people know that, or the Schlot News, let people know what we're doing, and be kind of nice, like you said, if it's kind of a outreach, public outreach.
At some point, we'll have a hearing too, before we get too far with our planning, so that people, anybody in town who wants to weigh in on the issue can do so.
You did a presentation at town meeting
Yeah,
last
yeah.
year. Do you think you'd be doing another presentation this year?
Right, yeah, so one of the things we're gonna try to do is to have a real, actual plan in place, and I'd like to, it would be nice if I could have a few minutes to kind of summarize that at the next town
That'd be good.
meeting.
but the library also has a fair amount of notification, distribution, outreach kind of thing, so.
Yeah, so that's another part of the puzzle that we're gonna try to figuring out is how to do the outreach part.
Joanna?
So the goal is for all of the towns, there's several towns in Vermont that already have EAB plans, Emerald Ash Borer preparedness plans. And Charlotte will have one as well. So that's one of the goals of this committee, is to have a plan. And once the planning structure is in place, there will be outreach activities that will be part of that, including a warning, a public meeting for the town, so people will not freak out when a lot of trees are being chipped and they don't understand what's going on in the right-of-ways. And also helping them to understand what's going to happen to the trees and that they need to think about their own properties as well, giving them recommendation for replacement trees. So there's a lot of different activities that we've been discussing, but we are putting it in a structured plan, and that will be presented hopefully by town meeting. A draft at least will be presented, but there will also be some interaction with the public before town meeting as well.
Is there going to be anything, information given to the landowner that has these trees in their right-of-way?
Yeah, we've been having some discussions about, how to do that. What we like to do is to have each landowner who's affected receive a bright green postcard with a notice. So we'd use some of the, if we had a budget, we'd use some of the budget for that purpose.
Because there may be a landowner that may say they want the wood or they want the wood chips.
Right, or they might
And
want to.
that would alleviate part of your
Trucking costs.
trucking or getting rid of cost.
Right, or they might want to treat the, you might want to keep it.
Or maybe that's a possibility.
Right, so we want to make sure that people have the chance to do that if they want to, or keep it for, so.
We're working very closely with the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program as well, and they have excellent resources on emerald ash borer, and it's not only for professionals, but it's also for backyards, landowners with larger parcels. And so a lot of the information that we're using is coming from them because they're very prepared and have a lot of great resources that we can draw from. And so we'll be directing folks to their resources as well. And they have plenty of information that would help a landowner with those kind of questions you're asking.
Yeah, it's a great team. They were the ones who trained us in the GIS mapping technology.
I think we really need to move on. Thank you for coming and holding up. That late. Thanks.
I was wondering if we could switch the next two agenda items. I believe Charlie has to go to another town
Okay,
meeting.
we can do that. Any adjustments to the agenda?
No.
Any, well, why don't we wait till public comments then? So, Charlie? Well, if you sit in the front row, then it picks it up on that speaker. Thanks.
Yeah, I think so, by email.
But did you get a copy of my report?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I did.
Right.
Thanks. You want to join me? So thank you for making time. Sorry to the senior center. So this is my kind of annual visit, checking in with you. I don't want to read this in detail. So I know you have a lot on your agenda. The first page kind of gives you some broad background about the RPC, kind of how we function, our budget a little bit, and then your representation on our board and the TAC and the Transportation Advisory Committee, the Planning Advisory Committee. Happy to answer any questions about that general background. But if not, I'll move on. The second page and going on to the third, kind of give you a listing of some of the individual specific things that we did with the town this past fiscal year. Again, happy to answer or try to answer questions on any of those. Some of those I don't know all the details about, of course. I think it was, I can't remember the time frame when we were providing some staff assistance for zoning administration.
Yes,
yeah, for a few months, so glad we were able to help out.
And extended it.
Yeah. Was that last fall, I guess?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about it, yeah. But anyway, we're kind of glad to be able to do that.
It worked out really well.
Oh, good. Yeah, and I think it honestly helps us too, because we get a little more sensitized to what's going on.
Yeah, they had a good experience, everybody.
Yeah, good. We've been doing a lot of work, you know, in all our towns, but also here in Charlotte on the energy planning stuff. It's definitely the municipal roads general permit, the road erosion inventory work.
That's been extremely helpful.
Oh, good, okay, yeah, you've been getting conceptual plans and,
Inventory,
We've done 3 or 4 projects already on that.
yeah, good. Yeah, so it's been good, we've been able to kind of access some of our funding and VTrans funding to really, you know, do all the front-end work, and hopefully help you apply for construction grants. And so going on to the third page, up at the top there is some of that other road erosion grant money. And then the projects that are in the Transportation Improvement Program, you're probably familiar with Route 7 getting done. That little project.
And fixed,
Yeah.
redone.
It looks like you got a traffic signal upgrade coming up and a rail crossing coming up next year. So heads up, I'm assuming you're aware of those, or?
I don't actually know, I don't think I was aware of the Thorpe Brook Bridge.
Oh, what's going on there? Oh, it's a rail bridge.
The rail.
Yeah, the
That's
rail
there.
bridge.
Oh, the rail bridge, okay.
That's where Lake Road, near Lake Road and Greenbush?
Oh, that must be that trestle on Greenbush, right? Fairly far north. Yeah.
Yeah. You want us to find out
Where's
what?
that?
Just below the
Excuse me,
park?
where's that?
Isn't that just below the park? There was discussion years ago
Oh, way
about
up there.
raising it
Oh,
Greenbush and on
for
where Lake Road comes
larger
out.
truck traffic.
That's not Thorpe,
That's not
No?
Thorpe Brook though.
no.
Oh, that's home.
Pen-
Thorpe Brook is down
Oh.
by Kimblebrook Farm, so
Yeah,
down that
well,
way.
it's at Thompson's Point Road
Yeah.
Oh,
and more.
Let me find out some more information.
We need to learn more about
email you.
that.
that's a
Yeah.
lot of money for that. If it's the one
Yeah.
on Thompson Point Road, there's not much there. Unless you're gonna put signals.
We
And
should learn more
actually,
about
the rail crossing improvements at Thompson's Point Road, I guess I did hear about that, but that is not, that's a light, is that?
Could very well be.
Okay.
Is that with the safety plan, Chris Davis?
It-
Some of those requests to,
Could be,
And
yeah.
VTrans has been doing, a lot of
Yeah.
rail crossing safety projects around the
So they
state.
just did Town Line Road with, this is right on the border of Ferrisburg, like 2 years ago. And so maybe they're doing the same thing up the line.
Down by Williams Woods is where there would be a rail trestle over the brook itself.
Yeah,
Down back in the woods there,
further south.
and that is an issue just already the stream, but I don't know about the other parts.
Okay, I'll find out some more detail and
Okay.
get that to you, Dean.
So before you
Yes.
go, can we go back up
Sure.
to technical assistance?
Yep.
The bottom bullet there, crash data analysis to identify, what's that all about?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So I know just the basic background. I can find out some more information to see if you had any roads. So VTrans has a program, what they call their Systemic Local Road Safety Program, where they try to compare your crash statistics on some of the real more local roads, and see if you have any kind of higher crash locations that might be eligible for some funding fixes from them. So they basically were asking us to analyze data to see if there's any good candidate projects. Because I don't see the project, I'm not sure it turned into anything. So we may have just done the analysis and it didn't turn into a project.
Yeah, I think we said a couple locations in there, like Spear Street and that hill right there by Lime Kiln.
Where?
Spear Street and Lime Kiln, that hill,
Oh.
that blind spot. There's a couple other things that I sent the names in for. They probably didn't meet the threshold to
Where you
need
work
to be
with
worked.
SAI in our office,
Yeah,
SAI, yeah. Okay.
he asked for some locations and I gave him a couple, so they probably,
That's where that fell into that bullet point.
Yeah.
You asked
Yeah.
a nice question, okay.
Thanks, Fritz. I'm glad you knew what that was
Yeah,
about.
me too.
And I'll find out if there was anything that came out of that, or that there might be something that comes up. And then the last couple of pages are kind of things that are not town-specific, but things we work on region-wide. The ECOS plan, we just updated that. We're doing a legislative forum every December. We've been still working on encouraging more home construction. And of course, the clean water stuff.
Wait, Charlie.
Dispatch, yep. Interrupt me, anyone.
Okay, well, then we don't have to go back. Where are these 3,500 homes
Oh.
expected to be in
Yeah,
by 2021?
Most of them are landing in the more urban towns, where we have sewer and water. So 2016, I think we built over 900 new homes in the county. 2017, 600 something. So we're averaging more than 700 a year in the county. The county's growing by maybe about 800 people a year. But it also tells you that, household size is decreasing. I think part of our aging population is, kids move out and even two-person households become one-person households. So even though our population isn't growing as much as it was, in the 70s and 80s and 90s, there's still a pretty high demand for housing units. I don't know if that's answering your question. We actually have a little, I can give you more detail if you're interested in a map of where the units are actually locating.
I think we're reaching out through another person at the county regarding affordable homes.
Oh yeah, about doing that housing analysis. And yeah, maybe we should, if you want to talk about that for a moment. So she kind of gave you a quote back of like 10 grand, and it's just on Dean Gulp. So I don't know how that, jibes with what you were thinking about doing. So, and in her email, did you see her email response? Did they all see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I think we're trying to figure out what to think.
Yeah, what to think about it. So, part of it's something that we haven't specifically done, but we're thinking it's going to take about 200 hours of staff time. And this $50 an hour is kind of a discounted staff. That's not our full cost. So we try to do a discounted rate for municipalities. If it's something you're interested in, but it's, in terms of everything else you have on your plate, it's a big thing to tackle. If you're looking for some more simplified analysis, we're happy to do that. But if you're looking for like a full, what a consultant would do for you, full kind of analytic report, that'll take quite a bit of time.
Well, how much would a simplified something be? I wonder if we'd get enough information or the information we were looking for.
Yeah, can we get any guidelines on the cheapo option?
Yes.
We'll look.
Just a
I'll go
place
back and
to
look for the cheapo option.
So we're looking for a place to start, be able to,
Yeah, so some of the basic statistics might help you get started.
yeah.
Okay.
One thing might
Even what
lead to
statistics are
another.
available, that's kind of a,
Yeah, so there's a whole website that the Vermont Housing Finance Agency has set up called housingdata.org. And they actually have a little guide to collect stuff. So between maybe a little bit of help with us, and if you have a volunteer committee working on this, maybe we can kind of team up and figure out some way to help you.
that sounds like a better plan than gulp
Then throwing
price.
10,000 at us?
Yeah,
Fair enough.
nothing personal.
No, understood. It's money. Thanks for reminding me to talk about that. So a dispatch, I think I was just about to mention, so the town's, well, Shelburne did not vote to be included in that, so, I think that's still gonna be a lingering issue.
And we're tied to them, right?
Yeah, you have a contract with them, as I understand it.
So with their not voting for this, what happens? What's the impact? Shelburne and ourselves?
Honestly, I think the conversation's just gonna continue. The other towns are gonna try to set something up, and at some point, there will be more conversation with Shelburne, like, hey, now that we have this set up, do you wanna come in and join this? At some point, there's going to be an issue with who's the 911 call center. Right now, they have that service in Shelburne where they do 911 call, which is part of the reasons they didn't vote for it, is they already have 911 call center. So I'm not overly concerned at the moment. It's just going to be a conversation that continues. They don't have a seat at the table as decisions are being made, which is a little unfortunate. So they may come back and revisit that at some point, I expect. So I think just stay tuned at this point. And let us know if if there's any anxiety happening. We can try to get the right people here to address it for you. I don't think there's anything else specific I wanted to touch on, but happy to answer any more questions.
No, that's good. Yeah, we like to spend a lot of time on affordable housing, so I know that.
Pardon me.
And you can do there in the cheapo, that'd be good to help us progress.
My understanding is that, I think the select board isn't aware, but there has been a lot of work being done by the planning commission with the assistance of staff person from regional planning on the energy planning, and that's been a big help.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and we were fortunate to have some extra funding coming through the public service department that really kind of helped supplement us doing more work on it. So I'm glad that's working.
Thank you for
Okay.
coming.
So would we be able to get the survey, the most recent survey and the transportation survey?
Yeah,
So that will be out in October?
Yep.
And we would get the results of that survey?
Yeah, we'll definitely be sharing it with Jim.
Seems like
and-
that would be good information to know
Yeah.
some of that.
Yeah, and we'll share it with, certainly with Jim and Marty, and Dean, you'll probably get it at the TAC meeting.
Which survey is that?
It's, they had that one right there, Chittenden County Transportation Survey. So, just heads up, Peter will have the results of that next month.
It's that survey that has the points and all the other stuff attached to it. Maybe not. That's probably the next step.
It's more a public opinion survey.
Okay, it's not the same one I'm thinking of.
Just kind of how people are feeling about transportation
Okay,
within the county, so.
Great.
More.
something else.
Okay. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you.
Gary, you're on. Sorry to hold you up.
Did you want to leave anything in here?
No, I do, they have all the quotes, and they have,
I have the quotes here. They
You want to kind of summarize for us then, what your selection and what the
Yes, I will.
totals are?
We had three bids for putting on a new countertop, and I've got a drawing if you're interested. But we applied for $7,500, I think it was, in the budget, in our budget. And we're going to go over a little because we made some choices. And,
So 7,500 was in the budget between us?
yes.
For the counters?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly, okay. And when we bid them out, and they came up with three bids, and I'm really recommending the mid bid, not the low bid.
Okay.
And the reason I'm doing that is I had good interaction with all three, and the middle bid was by far the most professional. I think we get the best job, and probably on time. I'm not so sure about the low bidder. I have some questions about just how reliable he might be. And that's my opinion. I worked with these guys for a couple of months. It never occurred to me how much bids differed for something like this until I got very specific, and then we finally got to. But anyway, there's about a $500 difference between the two bids,
I was
approximately.
wondering if you got any local bids from
They're all
local,
bids, they're all from Acton.
no, I understand that.
Yeah.
Charlotte local, like,
Well,
and
not
we have,
that local.
we have a
but-
number of builders here in town, and I was wondering if you got a bid from any of them or asked any of them.
No, I asked the ones that actually were recommended by the manufacturer, and I looked at that.
By the
went through 'em.
manufacturer of what?
Well, the manufacturer of the countertop material. And we were looking for somebody who could install it and have that more expertise. And these people were the ones that were highly recommended for us to go. They were local people, and in fact, that they were in the state, but not necessarily in Charlotte. There has to be a connection between the supplier and the manufacturer of the material. It's called Living Stone, and it's so similar to Corian. And there's only a certain number of people who really deal with that directly. So that's how I happened to come up with the number of the people I did.
Very good. And how come we need a new countertop?
Pardon me?
I didn't get an opportunity to go over and look at the countertop. Why do we need a new one?
Well,
Didn't
this
get-
was juried up because they moved the materials, they moved the counters around. And when they did that, they had to put little wood spacers in between them. So there's a discontinuity. We sometimes get gigged by the state for having, non-cleanable countertops. And plus the fact is we were basically faced with not enough space for people to come through with their trays. So we widened that out so that we would have tray space for the folks that are picking up the food. So all that given, and then making it as cleanable as possible. And that's where we came over the budget that I was planning on doing.
So the name of the company then is it
It sticks and stuff.
Sticks and Stuff?
Yeah.
And that's the
That's the mid bid.
9475, is that the,
94.75. We are tax-free, so we don't have to pay the tax.
what did you just say?
We're tax-free, so we won't have to be paying any
Okay,
sales tax on it.
so
That's
9475,
that's the final number, yes.
okay.
Now, there is an additional item, and that's the faucets and the plumbing. And I priced that out at roughly $1,200. The faucets run about $220 a piece, and then the plumber we have to unhook and rehook, and that was not part of this.
Did this follow our purchasing policy with the RFPs sent out and stuff like that?
I'm sorry?
He obtained quotes, 3 quotes. He didn't do an RFP.
But didn't necessarily follow our outline for the purchasing policy.
Did not go out to bid.
It did or did not, did go out?
He got 3 quotes.
Okay.
Well, getting 3 quotes is different, not the same as going out to bid, so.
How much would a laminate countertop cost? Did you check
Well,
that out?
we wanted to go away from it anyway. That was one of the decisions we made. We had this discussion with you folks too, about the material being much more serviceable. The laminate would be less, of course, but we have laminate now, and it was generally, I think, agreed, I thought anyway, that we would be going with a little higher class countertop.
What would the laminate cost? Did you check that out?
I don't remember the exact price.
So this is a Corian type material?
What we're using is the Corian type.
Yeah, that's pricey.
Well, it is, but that was what we had agreed, I believe, when we talked last time.
We were talking about countertops. Mine at my home is 25 years old, and it still looks pretty darn good. So I was, well, no, not necessarily. I was thinking about that because it's been 15 years over there, and I would think a household would get a lot of, as much in areas.
Are there health department rules that have to follow here?
Basically, that's it, yeah.
Right, but it just has to be able to be cleaned.
For right now, what we're going for is something that's very cleanable, and the health department has come in. We've been gigged a couple of times for the countertops, and they were kind of rigged around at the time of construction, and we changed quite a few things before I became part of the business, and it's just a whole lot easier.
So when they were moved wrong? That's why they
I
don't
wouldn't
line,
say it was
that's why they
wrong. I
don't,
wouldn't
that's why
say
they
it was
don't line
wrong. I
up?
wouldn't say it was wrong, it was to improve the flow, and it happened before I came, so I can't be sure what the exact reason for everything to be moved, but there's a flow that's different than the original design was, and that was done prior to my being involved here.
So, Dean, I'm looking at, just did the totals, so the total of these two with the plumbing is $10,675. So the budget is $7,500. Where's the difference come from? How's that?
It could, if the select board authorizes it, come out of the improvement and repair fund, which is budgeted to have 25,000 go into it this year.
So that's our repair fund for town properties.
All town properties.
And that balance is what, about 25,000? Well, 25,000 is about to go into it.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
What?
this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the year we're in now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm surprised we didn't come up with an RFP that goes out to bid, replacing the faucets and the
Yeah,
countertop
Should have had everything.
All right,
of this type or similar, and let it go out to bid instead of just calling 3 people. I don't think we're following our purchasing policy here. Especially if we're $3,000 over our budget.
right.
Not comfortable jumping on that without having it posted out to bid for,
What's the timeline before the health department does another inspection?
I don't know.
Random.
They
It's
come
random.
basically
It's not like an annual
unannounced.
certification.
They do want to announce, like, they know we cook on
Right, they
Monday
come-
noon, and
they-
so they come in Monday morning.
They can come in
Sure, it's a
anytime,
minor-
but you get a new license once a year.
Like January 1st, or whenever they give it to you, it's a year from then?
Yeah. You get a new license, caterer's license, basically, once a year. And they can come in and inspect whenever they want. And depending on things, they may do it a couple times a year, they may do it once a year, they may skip a year, it may depend on a complaint, it may depend on,
this is a result of a citation or a notification from the health department that they're not acceptable?
well, they give you
Is that
a.
what started this
They
process?
got a list, and they give you a check, and they take off points for certain things, and if you get so many things, then they close you down.
Yeah, I'm just wondering is that what motivated the counters being replaced, is notification from the health
I'm assuming that they must
department?
have gotten a write-up from through
Well,
their
that's what I'm
check,
asking.
through their check mark. Did you have
We've had check marks against that, yes.
and,
It wasn't,
and how many times has that happened? Just once?
can't
or-
say that I remember that. I don't know.
So this is not in a direct response to the health department notification, other than,
A desire to have
yeah.
a new counter and have it,
It's not like they've said, here's a citation, you gotta have it fixed by this date,
Right.
kind of thing. Okay.
so, and it should go out for bid.
So is that the pleasure of the board to have
Yep.
a formal RFP?
Yes,
Well, I
Right.
think for 10 grand, we
yeah.
should.
That's why we put painstakingly went through all that.
I would
for
make
months
sure
to
that
make
it
that
has
happen.
for the faucets too, everything is gonna need to get it done.
Yeah, pick a faucet type.
And if we're gonna do it,
Well,
let's,
It was kind of separate, that's why I made it the way I did.
We want it all together now.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, I guess that's, we're
So
asking you to.
what do I need to do now?
So Dean can help you with the more formal RFP and make it available. I think you advertise. I mean, I'd let your current bidders know what you're doing.
Okay.
the RFP will tell them exactly what you're doing, so you'll be able to you can send them directly one of them, and they'll be able to do their quote.
Fill in the blanks.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
I'll give you a call tomorrow. I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Okay, Charlie Baker's done. Were there any public comments anybody's waiting for? Charlotte Land Trust, LLK. So this is how we're doing reviews. We're doing like 3 or 4 committees, every 2 weeks, kind of a preliminary, kind of get an assessment of what it is you're looking for. We roll that up and then perhaps invite back for a final discussion. Not like, it's like what we've been doing over the years. Okay, you're familiar.
Okay, so Charlotte Land Trust, we're put in a request for the same amount that's been allocated the past few years, and that's $5,000. So if there are any questions about that, I have.
So why don't you review, so we make sure we're on the same sheet here?
Sure. I assume, Dean, do they have what I sent out? Yeah, okay. So that's the first thing I put on there is the line item for CLT to be level funded at the amount of 5,000. It's the first sentence.
Oh, okay, first sentence, got it, yep. So that's a level fund from the previous year?
Correct, yes. I think maybe even 2 or 3 years, I'm not sure.
Okay.
513, you're expecting to see maybe 340 worth. And if you add 40 to it, you'd have 200,000 left over when we're done. Am I doing that math
Oh,
right?
no, this is the Charlotte, the first sentence, Charlotte Land Trust.
That's just the top, that's
I'm
just,
doing 2 things. So the
Oh,
first is
okay.
the Charlotte Land
All
Trust
right,
line
I'm
item.
looking at the other one.
okay, I get it, we're all on the same sheet now.
Yes, it's the first sentence on your memo.
Okay.
So if there are any questions about that, happy to answer
So
them.
what examples of what the charges are against that?
Sure. It's a variety of things. It changes year to year a little bit based on what we have going on, but it's things like appraisals of projects. There's something called a BDR, Baseline Documentation Report, that's done at the end of every project that we do. It's essential going forward over the years to make sure we know what it is we're looking at, and we used it for that as well. We do something called easement defense insurance through a National Land Trust insurance corporation. It helps with that. That's something that more and more land trusts are doing. You have to meet certain standards to qualify for this insurance, which we do meet, so which is a good thing. So the fund helps with that. A whole range of things that go towards making our work more careful and better, more responsible, that type of thing, as well as more effective in helping landowners go forward with projects. But those are the main things over the years. Yeah, BDRs, easement insurance, some legal when we do closings. This is just a rundown of the past few years. Appraisals. Yeah, those are the main things. But as I said, it changes every year because we have different things that we're doing.
And the conservation fund?
So the conservation fund, if I'd come in 2 weeks ago, I probably would have said 0 in terms of next year's, what we'd put in the budget for next year. And the past couple of weeks have been really unusual. We have had, I bet, 3-4 projects that we've been approached about, plus one that was already going to be on our list that has been kind of going along for a few years, as projects sometimes do, and all of a sudden has just jump-started into where you'll probably see an application in a couple of weeks. So because, you know, this is September and this is for a budget that doesn't even go into effect until next July, and the allocations don't go in till November, we're actually talking about something now that's got maybe 2 years to run. And so when I looked at the things that had kind of started to ramp up, I got a little nervous about saying 0 for something that's really going to be affecting out into 2 years. And I understand, and certainly we appreciate the fund is you know, at a high level right now, and we don't.
So we're at 503 right now?
503, correct.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, 2 weeks ago, I probably would have said there's no need to put any allocation in, but given the activity of the past few weeks, and actually there are 2 projects that I've talked with landowners or their representatives of in the past week that I haven't even got on this list. I will say too, the largest dollar item on the list, the 100-acre, although in this business nothing is ever certain, I would say that's as close as a guarantee as we ever have in the conservation business that that project will come before you. It's the type of project.
So you keep all this private until it gets...
Yeah, over the years, and ever since we started doing these reports, the decision was to not put a landowner's name on it because we try to be keep confidentiality as much as we can for landowners. I mean, these are real estate transactions, and the rule of thumb when I decide what to put on the list is that we have had some amount of contact with the landowner. These are not speculative in that it's a piece of property that we're saying, oh gee, that would be nice. These are all properties that we've had more than one conversation with the landowner, and that we have a pretty good feeling that they would be qualifying projects. Now, some of, as I said, the 100-acre one, I say that's almost a sure bet that that will come before you.
What, I mean, the next, you said next
I would say
month or two?
that one, except for the 77-acre one, which is the one that kind of really jumped into the fast lane this past week, I would have said the 100-acre one would be the next one you will see. But that's no longer true. There will most likely be the 77-acre one. But anyway, as I said, the past couple of weeks, it's funny how it can just all of a sudden, it's like everybody woke up and said, gee, let's do it. So that's why I put in really a relatively small amount. And again, because we're talking about something in September that's going to have to count for a good long time. And as you go through your budget process the next few months, you know, if something should happen with some of these that have sped up the past couple of weeks, obviously I'd be happy to come back, let you know that, and modify the request if it seems appropriate.
So we didn't put any money in for the fiscal year we're in now?
Fiscal year one for now has had none, and I believe maybe even the year before.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So this is the first time you've asked, or you've asked, but this is, sounds like it's
Yeah.
a little more urgent to
Well,
support
you
it.
know, yes, I mean, I felt it was prudent to ask for some because of, as I said, the amount of things in the past couple of weeks that have changed. The other thing we've tried over the years is to make sure that that we never are in a position with the fund where we have to make a big allocation to catch up. We've always thought that small, measured increments when we might not seem to need them would be more prudent than coming up at a time where we have to make up a gap with a bigger amount. So that's, again, why I thought a small amount, it might be more prudent than just rolling along for another year, finding out we've got a couple of good projects, and then all of a sudden there's more to make up. It's not an exact science, obviously. It'd be great if it was easy enough, like, you know, I know the roof's going to need to be repaired in 5 years, but these projects move along at their sort of their own pace. So.
Any questions from anybody? So you're going to start creating a draft of these inputs that we get then for
Right.
the new budget?
Yeah, and Mary as well, I'm sure.
Yes.
My question is, how much money have you spent in the last 12 months?
I'm sorry, we have not spent any in the last 12 months, which is why I said, as you know, if I put this request in a couple of weeks ago, I probably would have said 0 for allocation. But looking ahead to what we've seen in terms of inquiries, as well as the pace of where these projects are, has changed quite a bit in 2 weeks.
So you have 503,000 on hand.
Correct.
And theoretically, you might have 340,000.
If they all came up, right. And
So you don't need any more money.
one of the reasons we decided, I thought it would be prudent to put in a little bit, is because over the 20 years that we've been doing this, one of the things we've tried very hard to avoid are times where we come into a level where all of a sudden, you know, really a project everyone wants to see happen comes up, and there needs to be a big allocation. We try to avoid big allocations. And so it's not an exact science. It was trying to hit a prudent point based on what we see in the pipeline. As I said, this is September. The budget will be, you know, to the voters in March, and then the money then doesn't go into the fund till the next, actually over a year from now. And so we have to, I was trying to decide what would be prudent with basically talking tonight about something that runs for almost 2 years into the future. It's always a tricky thing to figure out.
Okay, thank you
Sure.
for coming in. No questions from anybody? Any more? That's it, I guess. Thank you. Yeah. Lewis Creek Association. Have to remind me of your name again.
I'm Krista Hofsis. Yeah. Okay, so there's a couple sheets that I gave you all. One of them has just the money that we're requesting through the Conservation Commission budget, which is $2,700 for our water quality stewardship program. So I'll talk about that first. So this is the same amount that we've asked for the last few years. And this is going both towards water quality monitoring for Thorpe Brook, Kimball Brook, and we have a station in Charlotte for the Plat River. And it's also going towards our invasive species management program, most of which takes place in Town Farm Bay. So in past years, we've done mostly European frogbit management. Back in, I think it was 2009, or was it 2007? It was almost 50% cover on the surface of this invasive species. It was out competing native species. And over the years from our volunteer management work, we have it now down to 5% pretty consistently. But we do need to keep at it every year to contain it to that small level that really isn't impacting the wetland. So it's for that, and because we have a handle on frogbit now with the same amount of money, we're also able to expand out into other invasive species in Town Farm Bay. So the next big one that we want to tackle is flowering rush. And we came to decide that working with technical advisors from the state in the Lake Champlain Basin program that have been out there paddling with us and recommend that's what we tackle next. So this year we've mapped all the flowering rush, and next year for fiscal year 1920, we would like to actually do the management of a good chunk of that. So that is the $2,700. And it has shifted a little bit more of that money is going towards invasives and a little bit less is going towards the water quality monitoring, just because we do have some help from the La Rosa program, which is state funded money to do the water quality monitoring for some of that. And then 200 of that just goes towards supplies so that we can upkeep our equipment and our boats and stuff like that. So that's for the Conservation Commission budget. And then the other piece is $650 unrestricted funds. And this is also what we asked last year. Normally we would give you kind of an annual accomplishments list when we do this, but we normally have that ready for October, so it's a little bit early this year. But we have done a fair amount of extra projects in Charlotte. We just completed one in the Big Oak Lane development off of East Thompson's Point Road, and that was a green stormwater infrastructure project, so we finally got to do implementation, and that's right at the headwaters of Thorpe Brook. And just from LCA's match alone, that was $750. We've also been talking to the Charlotte Congregational Church a little bit this year, planning specifically where on the site we can move that forward, which will hopefully happen in the next year or two. We're working on creating a self-guided tour in Charlotte for all of our ahead of the storm sites, which are all will be design and implementation projects, and they'll be educational, so you can go around and learn about that. So we did have a fair amount of work in Charlotte last year. In 1920, we're going to continue on to push more projects forward. Oh yeah, we're working with the Champlain Valley School District right now to secure some money. We want them to provide a big match, and we're trying to get some grant funding too to further the ahead of the storm projects across a lot of their campuses, including the Charlotte Central School. So we've been partnering with them for a few years, and hopefully we'll secure funding for 1920 to actually get something in the ground.
So what's happened with the head of the storm? Did that money go away, or like you were looking at a project for the church, or we were for a year or so, and then we kind of dropped our effort? Did the funding go away?
Right, so you have to do funding by phases. So we got funding to do some site assessments and hire engineers to figure out exactly what the hydrology is on the site and where would be the best spots to do implementation projects. And after we do that, we move it forward to a preliminary design, then a final design, then it's ready for implementation. So we have the preliminary designs ready at the Congo Church, and so now we're kind of waiting for them to be ready to provide a little bit of match so we can chug ahead and do final design.
The church?
The church was wanting to actually do fundraising. So we were sitting with Dave and Jet and the crew, and they wanted to take it into their orbit and do some fundraising. So
Yeah, they
Krista
wanted to
spent
help.
time with them to do that. And I think what happened was that their financial priorities shifted a little bit, and they wanted to do some other things first. And so, I'm not
So
even
that
sure.
project's kind of on standby.
It's a little bit on standby at the
Yeah.
church. But there's like 16 projects in the various school campuses that are getting in the pipeline to take the next step for each one of those treatment areas.
So Mary's note is, why do we have some of this from the Conservation Commission and some from a line item for the Lewis Creek Association? Is that,
He's wondering why some of it is allocated through the Conservation Commission and some is just a line item for LCA.
Because the LCA request is for not a specific project. It's for admin, it's for spend it wherever you want it. So LCA goes to all the watershed towns and asks for a little bit of money to help leverage these grants and special projects, we call them. So the 27 is for like a real defined project. And so, I mean, we all just decided that the best place to put it was in the Conservation Commission budget. Doesn't have to be, but like the LCA 650 one goes under contributions in the general fund.
Donations. And typically you send in a letter
Yes.
requesting that
That's right.
650.
Right.
Yes.
Yep,
And explaining
That's right.
what you explained tonight.
yeah.
Yeah,
where that
so
money
it's
would
sort of
be
singled
directed.
out. Yeah.
Do all the towns put the same amount of money?
Yeah, we'd love you to do more, but we're not gonna come to you for that, so, later. But it's a nice gesture that the municipalities give money, and even with the Broadbent one, the state and other, even academic campuses are really impressed with what's happened there, and the municipal support that has been provided to it is really a success story. It's pretty cool,
The LCA is a nonprofit.
yeah.
What's the operating budget?
It's about 100. And that really depends on the kind of grants that come in. Like right now, we're about ready to put in for a $350 project over at the Heinsberg Garage. So that will make it go like that, but it's, you know, about 100-ish.
Any other questions?
that answered that question.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
is this?
Mary's not here.
Mary always wants clear invoices for all that, yes. Okay, Lewis Creek Conservation. Oh, we're almost back on, oh,
Conservation.
Getting close.
oh, yeah, Amos, right.
Yeah, we're in the window.
We're almost back on, you're gonna get us back on schedule, huh?
Yes, I hope so. I just handed Dean a little sheet of notes and comments that were not included with the actual budget worksheet. And they're just, I'm just gonna go over those with you real quickly, but I wanted him to have something. And I apologize for not having copies made and ready for everybody, but, the budget does.
Make sure I'm on the sheet of paper. Which should I be looking at? This, we're seeing this right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead. You guys
Okay.
on board then?
As you just heard, the level funding actually reflects an expansion of programs in the LCA programs in terms of primarily moving from different species to controlling different species. The mapping, which is the next item on my list, item number 43, we're actually wanting to reduce that next year because we're expecting to spend money yet remaining in our budget this year to cover some mapping updates and printing new maps and more updated maps. But we don't expect to do as much of that next year, so we cut back on that. The Charlotte Invasives Chick group came to us with a request to increase their budget, and that reflects a decrease in certain programs, particularly Phragmites and parsnip, wild parsnip. And part of that is being shifted to, or is being taken on by Junior and the road crews. So they're doing a little bit more of that, but they've had a request to collaborate with the Thompson's Point Leaseholders Association. And they've already got some volunteer structure going to do some much needed work there. So they've asked for $1,000, which makes their total $1,500. They actually reduced it $500 in terms of certain projects and requested an additional $1,000 to work on Thompson's Point. And that money is to be leveraged by volunteer activity by the Leaseholder Association.
Which invasives on Thompson's Point?
Primarily the brushy buckthorn and honeysuckle, but there are some other things as well. But that's generally where some brush hogging and some herbicide application and stuff comes in and begins to cost some money. We want to expand our ground proofing program in the Conservation Commission. Primarily that's trail cams, and we want to locate more of those, and we also have been confronted with the need to secure those. We haven't actually lost any ourselves, but we've been advised by local people and even the A&R people that some people don't want to buy them. They just want to have them, and they disappear. So
How many trail cameras do we have?
we've got 2 right now, and we're looking to get 2 more.
And securing them with like a cable and a lock?
Right.
Not-
Right.
nothing-
Chain, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, nothing.
To keep the,
No.
And they're both in use right now?
They're not both installed right now. One is and one isn't. One's been moved, and we also had to return one. It turned out to be defective, and we had to send it back and get it replaced, which has happened, but that one has not been reinstalled.
So if you're using one now, and then you get the second one installed, well, then you've got the 2.
No, we're hoping to have 4.
Well,
That's what
no,
I'm saying.
but At least you'd be double what you have now if you
Right.
fix the one that you have now that needs repairing and to be installed.
No, that's been replaced. So we have
And
2
put up-
functioning no, it hasn't been
Well, that's what I'm
put up.
saying, if you put the second one up,
Right.
right, then you'd have double of what you want,
What we have now, not
Mhm.
anywhere near what we could use. So we have a number of locations that we're very, very interested in, and we can't cover all those locations. Right now, we're only covering 1, and we're hoping to cover another one when we get that installed. We're also somewhat hesitant because we can't secure it at this point. So the $500 request is for 2 additional trail cams, basically.
These are on town property or private
Well,
property when
not
people
always.
ask?
No,
or-
we've approached property owners, in part because the farther we can get them off of the road right-of-ways, the more secure we feel about their location. But we have we don't have to ask permission, per se, to put them in, town property or right-of-ways. So it varies on the particular situation. We've also decreased the education and outreach budget because we, again, hope to spend some of the remaining budget from this year on some projects that we expect to use a consultant with. And there'll be some consulting fees. We don't expect that to be true next year. Next year, we hope to really focus on, when I say next year, in this budget year, we hope to focus on the volunteer program around iNaturalist and to expand on our ground proofing and actual observations by expanding the citizen science portion of the whole program.
Do you inform the landowner when you're putting them on their property?
If
they're going into the public right of way where you say you don't need to get permission, do you at least inform them?
Do I inform what?
And the landowner?
Yes. What I've said is we've approached some private landowners about placing them on their property. We don't have one placed on their property right now.
Right, but I'm saying that if you put one in the public right of way,
Right.
the public right of way, even though it's a public right of way, there's a landowner there. Do they get informed if you put it in the public right of way on their property?
Oh, no, actually, we hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, you would have to.
I mean, I would like to know if you're
That's
got a
really
camera
scary.
outside my house, because my house is 8 feet away from the road.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Different kind of wildlife up front.
No, that's a good point. We just simply hadn't thought about it as we thought about different
I mean,
locations.
I'm just saying, because every place I go that has cameras is always informing you that there are cameras there, so
Right.
why wouldn't you
Right,
inform a landowner that there's a camera being installed on his property?
right. Well.
Even though
the
you
initial
don't
ones-
have to inform
Right.
them.
The initial one is installed on Conservation Commission, member property.
Right.
So that, it
They're
didn't come up in that context. The other place we had as a high priority, we've approached the landowner, but we haven't actually, and gotten permission, but we haven't actually placed it there yet. So, yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you raised it.
Did we miss the CV conservation?
Yes,
Well,
we did.
Alliance?
that's for professional organizations, the Association of Vermont Conservation Commissions, AVCC, and they hold a conference each year. Last year, we requested some reimbursement money for that because
Okay, I remember that,
you
yeah.
know that. So we just are level funding that because it's proving useful.
And then the wildlife road crossing, I think is.
Right, that was the big surprise for us. It turned out that posts and installation is more expensive than the actual signs. And again, that was not a foresighted realization. For one, the requirements for mounting them were more stringent than we had any thought of, and Junior informed us of that, and so.
That's for public safety requirements?
Because they're next to the road.
Yeah.
There's sign requirements for public signs next to the road.
Yeah,
And that, may I ask, I saw them in the office the other day or in the meeting room. You have Junior's permission to put that many of them up around?
Around, but we haven't picked specific locations. No, that's when we went to talk to Junior, that's when we realized, oh, well, the posts are a bigger deal than the signs.
There's a lot of them.
So-
And I know Junior doesn't like a lot of extra signs,
Yeah.
so I don't mind having some, but that's a,
So it's more work for the road crew. They have to go around them when they're mowing the sides of the roads and everything.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of our conversation with Junior around that.
Okay.
And he was informed that, he knew beforehand, I believe, that we were interested in doing that from the very beginning, but there were no comprehensive discussions until we actually had the signs and started talking about locations and how to mount them, and then we discovered that there was a lot more money involved than we had imagined. So,
did you ever do the calendar?
no, we thought some of that's turned out to be, some of it is private property access, some of it is seasonal, but it's just turned out to be a lot more, challenging a task for the photographer, for the person who's actually doing that part of the work. So it's still out there. I haven't talked to that person for 3 months, between 3 and 6 months, so I don't know the latest. But I do know that she had, scheduled some different appointments with, of course, the tree warden and also some private property owners. But I don't know the latest.
And a laptop?
Yes, we
Who
have the
holds
laptop.
the laptop?
We own the laptop, and it's stored
Who
either.
holds it?
Who holds it?
That was
Right,
stored here.
right now, it's Susan Blood, I believe. And we had on this year's budget, I think we still have, right, the web development, that item was for software, additional software. For the most part, we've found open access software to use, but there was the possibility that we'd have to buy some software. Yeah.
I just heard the town owns a
Yeah, my
laptop.
question is simple. Why don't we need any kingdoms at all?
Because the wildlife corridors, which are important to our overall wildlife habitat usefulness, are largely determined by remote sensing, satellite imagery, and theoretical map modeling. And so, as proved significant this fall, to have actual on-the-ground observations that say, yes, this area is not just theoretically or remote sense, but we know as Charlotte residents that animals are actually using this area. It's just good sense, that we verify the theory with actual observations, and it turns out in terms of actually approaching and dealing with landowners, that's a really important confirmation to have, especially if you start to argue with a developer or somebody about, where's housing going to be placed and that kind of thing. So we don't want to be put in the position of speculating to whatever, informed speculation that would be. We want to be increasingly in the position of identifying where animals are actually traveling.
So somebody actually reviews hundreds of hours of film to see if they...
We don't have hundreds of hours of film right now. So, but we do walk around Mount Philo Park and make observations at different times of the year of tracks and so forth, and other kinds of things like that.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
Yeah. The invasives, so I know there's been a request to spray invasives within the road right away. And I guess it wasn't clear to me whether that should be coming out of this budget or whether it's coming out of the highway budget.
There have been funds in our budget for the last several years which have never been spent to deal with some of the state highway right-of-ways, and we've never been able to get permission to actually do anything in those. So that money's not in there this year. And I don't know the details. I know that Junior and the road crew are doing some and have put in their budget, I believe.
Well, it hasn't been, so I guess that's a question.
Well, it's my understanding that Junior's budget is gonna cover the roadside spray for the knotweed, not phyllo, and some other sites. They're mostly knotweed sites, but,
Is that true of the current fiscal year?
yeah,
Because I don't think it was in his budget.
well,
Junior's just sort of making some decisions, and it's like sort of an influx transitioning thing whether or not it should be here or there. And so it's like it's in transition now. So we can definitely report to you on how it's all shaking out, but he is saying, yeah, some of it can be in his budget.
So there's two items here that rise above the $1,000 threshold for our purchasing policy. How do we deal with that? I mean, that was one of the concerns with the 2,700 for Lewis Creek, because if we're spending it, do we have to get prices? Do we get quotes? I mean, over $1,000, right, is where the one where it doesn't require written bids, but it requires some form of documentation that there have been prices obtained for this.
My understanding of this discussion in the past is that it's the, what do you call it, sole provider, that there isn't anybody to compete with Lewis Creek for this particular kind of activity.
Are they under preferred?
I have to look.
Rich, I can't hear you.
I said there's there's two items here that rise to the $1,000 threshold of the purchasing policy that in theory we're supposed to follow the rules of that. And one way is to have a preferred provider,
Or sole proprietor.
sole proprietor,
Either or.
whatever you call that.
Right. We went through that a couple years ago, and I think we made a little contract with Dean and got it to be according to Hoyle and forgetting the details. But it's a little contractual thing that we made up because of what Amos just said.
Yeah, I think we did have a contract. It doesn't look like they're considered a preferred vendor or sole source.
He's looking at a preferred vendor list,
Right.
and Lewis Creek Association, I don't think is on our
No.
preferred vendor, which means that if you were on the, if Lewis Creek Association was on the preferred vendor, then we wouldn't have to go out for a whole bunch of.
Yeah.
Should do that.
Well, I don't know what you do with your records, but we have a contract based just upon Dean's guidance.
It was 2 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's a
When
couple of years
when
ago.
we took on, the Conservation Commission took on kind of overseeing the budget and the activities and reviewing all their reports, their annual report and so forth, and advising with them about different things. We had that discussion, and sole provider, I think, was.
Well, the same thing is true with the invasives now too.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you contact more than one sprayer? Or do we
So
call
you
just call Bob?
theoretically would be on that list?
Bob Hines still doing it?
I think so.
What's that?
Bob Hines is still doing the herbicide
Yes,
applications?
he's the only person I know right now, except one of his employees just got a license, so.
Competition.
But the question is, what should be on that list, and how do you keep it up to date?
That list stays until, I think the select board has to add you to the preferred vendor list.
And is habitat restoration, whatever Bob is called on there?
Yep.
So that would be another one?
I think you just mentioned another person in that business. I'm aware someone at Regional Planning indicated that they are starting to do that. So I think for spraying, it seems like there are other contractors that there's not a need for that to be a preferred vendor.
Absolutely. But Bob, well, I don't know, that's a whole other agenda item.
I guess the other services that LCA provides, I'm gonna leave it up to you to make an argument that there
I
are,
think we did that argument 2 years ago.
yeah.
Well, and the Conservation
Yeah.
Commission would be qualified to comment on that in terms of being familiar with
Yeah.
not only the actual programs, but the environmental situations that are involved in it. So we'd be glad to look into that.
I think you're right. I think it'd be a lot harder to find the group that's going to supervise and arrange the frog
Frog
harvest.
No one would want to do it.
No one wants to do that.
Right.
Spraying is probably something different. There's probably more than one person out there with a license, that'll squirt your weeds.
And aligning the purchasing policy with that list, an incidental purchase is anything less than $1,000, may be made by a purchasing agent without a solicitation for bids or quotations. However, if practicable, quotations are encouraged. So over $1,000 is where three quotes are required, but no formal bidding process.
And so like with the Sherlock's invasive, the CHIC program, part of what they're doing is supervising volunteers and supporting volunteers, and so then they're spending money maybe for brush hogging, which may be $500 or $800 or something like that. So I don't know just how, at what point.
Those are the incidental. So
Yeah,
anything
those-
under 1,000 And Bob Hyams is
But there are
probably under
incidental
1,000.
projects that may add up to 1,000.
Yeah,
I think that's what you're kind of saying.
Yeah.
It's not one,
They haven't yet though, for the chick stuff.
huh?
They've always been under 1,000.
Yeah, I think
Now
a
we're
purchase
talking-
is an invoice, anything that's invoiced is a purchase.
But he's got a line item in base of $1,000, but there might be,
Several different purchases.
right,
It's not just Bob.
right. I mean, it's not just gonna be, one,
So
Right,
we just have to see that.
see the invoices, yes.
Yeah.
yeah. If
That's
Bob
all.
is invoicing more than $1,000,
Mary's
then
got those.
it would need 3
Well,
quotes
and
from
that's,
us,
and that's what the
competitive quotes.
Conservation Commission, the kind of thing that the Conservation Commission said it would do when it took on the invasives program, that we'd kind of keep an eye on where that money was going and have some expertise about prioritization and that kind of thing. And, if somebody's spending, $1,000 or $2,000 on brush hogging or something, then that becomes a whole nother issue.
So I'm wondering if you want to have it on the future agenda to approve Lewis Creek Association as a preferred
I
vendor.
think we've done preferred vendors because of the only ones that really do it. We have a comfort factor, lawyers, different examples that we've done. So it'd be nice to have it somehow documented why they should be a preferred vendor. It doesn't have to be anything lengthy, but justify our putting on the list. And I think that's what the intent is.
Yeah.
But I've heard Mary say in the past, for the different things, subsets of what you do, she likes to see invoices, purchase order, not just at the end of the year, we spent X amount of money. She'd like to see invoices for the specific details that you did.
I thought we
I bel-
moved away from that with your contract proposal, like a fee for
I mean, the
service.
contract is for a specific amount.
Yeah, if I remember right.
But if you guys can work it out, I think justifiable, we'd support it. Anything else then?
Sorry, I don't think he got you back on schedule.
No. All right. A lot of crossings around.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Dennis.
Do you know how many laptops do different committees own? How many laptops do the town,
Committees or the town?
how many do the town own that the committees use?
I'm not aware of any.
How many
Other than-
laptops are used and things were provided by the town?
Then Daryl
As
has
in,
one.
has a laptop and a program or something is bought by the town to put on their laptop.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're not talking about laptops that are in the town hall, because, planning and zoning has
No.
one, recreation has one, but they,
For example, conservation, one of the members has a town laptop that the town bought, and they have it at their house. So, correct? Didn't you just say Suzanne Blood has it?
Today, yes.
As of today, that's true. So I wonder, does someone on the Energy Commission, for example, does somebody have a laptop that the town bought and are using it for their committee at home, or?
I don't believe so, but I
And
am
I'm
not
just
100%
picking, I'm not
sure.
picking on energy, I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
there's other
Right.
committees that are out there, and I just wondered.
I think they did have a piece of equipment for monitoring energy usage, but I think that was actually kept in the town hall.
Could we find out how many laptops the town owns that is not in this building?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item. KR Properties LLC.
I'd like to recuse myself as I have a familiar relationship.
So,
And this is
you guys are gonna brief us, what is our objective
executive
here?
session here
Is that
to
what's
discuss
appropriate?
this? I think so.
With all the parties that are here, or?
No, I think just the select board.
First?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, kick Matt out of that office. We like that office, he went in there.
He's in the one with the candy.
He
We gotta
is
throw
in
him
the
out.
one.
Is there an objective to have a resolution, or are you going to tell us?
Yes,
Possibly.
possibly.
Is there a motion for executive session?
Motion made.
You have to
Second.
have a reason for it?
To
Legal
Purpose of, yeah,
discussing the
legal matter.
discussing the
legal matter in the lawsuit.
That's seconded.
KR Properties.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. We'll return to terminate executive session and come out of executive session?
Yes.
Second.
Okay. All in favor,
Aye.
say aye.
So we've taken no action, but we have agreed with the concept that we discussed with the 100 feet and not 200 feet. And we're going to have the documents revised to reflect that, and we'll sign those at the next select board meeting.
And take a motion to sign those
Yeah,
at the next
We'll
meeting.
approve them next time.
Good, thank you. And really don't want to meet like this anymore.
That's why we wanted to tell you something, otherwise you're gonna come back again next.
But it's so nice to see you.
I know.
We're gonna miss you.
Prefer to see you around town instead.
Okay, so that's it. So how long does it take? We have it for the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks?
Should be 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be 2 weeks though, unless we have a special meeting. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you all for coming out. We want to get rid of our audience, and there they go. Okay, next item is application for recertification of Plouffe Lane landfill, environmental monitoring.
So I haven't actually completed the application, but we have the application from last year. We have the certification.
That's what's in the
Or not
packet
last year,
here.
5 years ago. Sorry, yes, that's in the
Okay.
packet. So every 5 years, it needs to be recertified. The packet includes the last recertification in 2013. And it also includes a blank application form and the 2013 application. So I basically need to complete it and then have Lane sign it to submit.
So you're looking for a motion,
I'll make a motion to approve the completion
okay, there you go.
and of the application for recertification of Plouffe Lane landfill and to have it signed by the chair.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Are there select board updates?
Fire department, the new truck's here, works. A few little picky things that, minor details that they're gonna take care of. But we've been testing it and training with it. The air packs are here. Everybody's starting to learn how to use those too. So, everybody's busy learning across the street.
And those had the other gate, the gas.
The gas, yes, the gas, also the gas meter. Well, that one's pretty simple. Instead of looking at 4 little screens, you look at 5 and it checks hydrogen cyanide. It's been a nasty thing produced by a lot of plastics that now they have to worry about.
And the safety fun day is when?
Oh, yes, that's September. Oh, let me
And
check.
the helicopters come in. All kinds of good
September
things.
22nd. Some of the things are they're gonna have, they're building 2 bedrooms with a hallway, and we'll show the difference between leaving your door closed in a fire and leaving it open, which will be rather dramatic for those who wanna watch. We're gonna have a car wreck with somebody entrapped in it, a volunteer. They're gonna cut them out and pick them up with a helicopter.
Where's this gonna be done at?
Right here.
Yeah.
Helicopter will land out here again. It's a different company, but it's going to be timed with radio communications with, as it would be a real accident. They'll get the helicopter coming. They'll start cutting the person out.
Will be is it car or building, did you just say?
Car.
Car.
And
So
we'll
that
have a
way-
helicopter pad in Ferrisburg in the future? Will
Oh, I
we?
don't
Do
know
we know
about that. They don't really need a helicopter pad. They-
UVM and
Oh,
Dartmouth Hitchcock just bought one together that they say in the further future, right now it's going to be direct transports, but that they'll envision using that for local transports also if
Yes,
needed.
yes. And
Down
I
the
thought
The only
Ferrisburg was
downside of that
preparing.
is there's a mountain range between Dartmouth and here, and there's not between the ones that are in New York. So this company is based out of 5 or 6 places in New York, and they're probably going to be, weather is always a big issue. So if you don't have to go over the mountains versus just scooting across the lake,
Yeah,
We'll
and
see.
faster, a
So-
shorter distance.
but that's up to the departments to pick if they decide they need to go with helicopter, but.
September when,
22nd, Saturday.
What time? 10?
Oh, I think it's, oh, geez, now you're pushing my capabilities here. I don't have,
Hey, it was a great time.
all I have it
last
under here
year.
is all day for that.
Okay, yes, that's true.
I'm actually not gonna be there, but sorry.
Matt, wasn't Julia and Bowden there last year? Yeah. We
Yeah.
spent a lot of time.
So I'm sure there's
Here.
gonna be, on their website, there's gonna be the schedule, and
Okay.
there's gonna be other stuff too, all of the safety trailer from the state, state police will have their dogs here again, and any number of things.
Okay. Just report the tunnel ceremony took place Saturday. Very well attended. I don't know, 50, 75 people. It was really quite nice. So, all ages. There's a whole bunch of little kids' bicycles all laying next to the tunnel, and you know, older people, grandparents, all generations. Really quite nice. They did a lot of work for it. There'll be all the pictures. They'll be in the Shaw News, I'm sure. So guys are working hard, and it's nice, and they're moving out. They have a nice trail map that they released, which is water resistant, of the 4 groupings of trails. Pease Mountain, that area where the tunnel is. Where else? Toward the beach. What are the 4 areas? It's in the map, but it's kind of nice. And they handed those out. And there were refreshments and so forth. Any other updates?
Did anybody get another select board member for that steering committee?
I think,
For which one?
well, for that.
State
no,
Park Trail?
State Park.
I'm happy, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
I always forget Donovan's first name.
Jim.
Jim Donovan is offered to, did we discuss this in a meeting? He's offered to design a trail from Trevor Mack to State Park.
He's coming to the next select
that's
board
right.
meeting.
I said I'd come to that.
I did ask him to email both Elaine and Carrie, just to let you know about this, invite you to the steering committee if you want to attend. So it's probably those
Is it
two.
Jot on that steering committee? He's back in town.
What's it,
I think
what's
it's
the date? of
Chris-
that?
Christine Cowart.
A Jot.
Christine Cowart from the Trails Committee is the one that offered. What would the
What's
next,
the time of that meeting?
the steering committee?
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 18th at,
Oh, there it is. 7 PM, Tuesday the 18th.
Right.
Tuesday the 18th, 7 PM. I was planning on attending.
Yeah.
I don't know if someone else.
I passed. My dance card's full lately.
Okay.
but Carrie, if you wanted to attend, you're certainly welcome to. If a quorum wants to attend, just let me know and I'll warn it.
Any other updates? Minutes, is there a motion to approve the minutes of August 27th as may be amended?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of August 27th, as may be
Second.
amended.
I notice on line 225, we went to executive session and we made some judgments there on timing. What did we say? Regular session was recessed at 8:25.
On the last page on the other side, it said 8:47.
Exactly, it was adjourned at 8:47. What are the blanks here on line 225? Motion
I made the motion and Frank seconded it, right?
to adjourn executive session, so that was Fritz and Frank, that's right.
Fritz and Frank.
F and F.
F and F. Okay, that's the only thing I realized.
203. I'm good, but I don't know if I can make a motion and second it myself.
203, right.
That's a frickin'.
That's Tenny and Teggett, that's TNT.
So who did that? Somebody,
It was
I'll look at my notes and change it.
It was probably me, because it's minutes, so
you probably approved it? Or
I
sec-
probably made the motion, but
Okay, so then
We got
second
it.
by Carrie, maybe?
No, second by
probably
Fritz.
Fritz.
Carrie had to abstain.
Okay, you weren't
So
there?
that would be Fritz.
Okay.
There we go, it's
Got it.
either F and F or TNT.
Anybody see anything else?
Line 14, administration has a typo.
Admin, oh, it's not spelled right. Wow,
Yeah.
you were so good. Okay. Everybody ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Abstain?
Okay. Gotta sign warrants. Here's a stack here.
Motion to adjourn?
Yeah, is that seconded?
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, sorry, Carrie, we're 8 minutes late.
We start.